Since the dawn of time, nerds have argued the point. Which is the better game, RuneScape 3 or old school RuneScape? The past or the present? But in mashing versus RNG. Having sunk thousands of hours into both games, I can tell you straight up that there isn't an easy answer. Both have got their ups and downs. But today, we'll settle this feud once and for all. For simplicity's sake, I'll split the comparison into 4 different parts: combat, progression, the roleplay factor, and game world/immersion. Old school RuneScape follows the traditional RuneScape formula. Click attack, sit back and watch as you and your opponent take turns hitting each other. Old school combat doesn't require much thought or effort of you, but there's a simple, rustic charm to it that a non-scaper wouldn't understand. The addictiveness of seeing those numbers pop up and being like, whoa, I just hit a 30? I'm growing so strong. There's not much depth or strategy to old school combat, but of course, if you want to play efficiently, you'll have to learn all the dodgy tricks. Prayer flicking, tick eating, tick this, tick that. If you don't like clicking things repeatedly at light speed, OSRS is not the game for you. And if you don't like being helpless in the face of RNG, you're going to have a bad time here. This is a game where you have no control over the outcome of a battle, over how much damage you deal or take. It's literally just a dice rolling simulation. Boss fights in OSRS can be fun, but they tend to get stale rather quickly, as they all recycle the same old tired mechanics. Switch overhead prey, walk under the monster, stay out of the puddle, etc. OS3 is a button mashing game. You have an action bar with abilities on it. I won't lie, combat in this game is really quite enjoyable, in stark contrast to old school's passive AFK combat. It engages your intellect and creativity. You're given plenty of different ways to try to maximize your damage output or minimize your damage intake. That being said, the adrenaline system is rather one-dimensional, and it does get old eventually. The skill cap on this game is pretty shallow compared to other button mashers like World of Warcraft. PvP in RS3 is completely dead, and for good reason, but the game has an excellent PvE department. Boss fights like Nex, Araxor, and QBD are all very entertaining, a big step up from old school bossing. My only issue here is that there's too heavy an emphasis on group work. Half the bosses in the game require a team to take on. If you're a solo type of player, you're gonna have a very bad time playing RS3. Lastly, there's something to be said for the game engine. At the end of the day, RS3 is still RuneScape. The game runs in 0.6 second ticks. You click on square tiles to move, you get loading please waits. The clunky, antiquated game engine simply isn't compatible with the high-tech combat system that they're trying to push. The result is that you'll run into plenty of bugs and glitches, like the one where having ability queuing toggled causes a 1-tick delay when you try to move. This sort of thing gets awfully frustrating and has made me rage quit quite a few times. Now, when OSRS players want to diss on RS3, the first thing you always hear is EasyScape. Is it justified though? Do they really know what they're talking about? For most skills, RS3 XP rates are drastically faster than old schools. In old school Skype, training Slayer, you can get about 90,000 combat XP per hour. In EOC, make that 600,000, a figure that's ever increasing. RS3 does a terrible job of balancing XP rates, and not making old content obsolete every time new content is released. It can feel like it's not worth your time training a skill today, when you know a year from now there'll be a new training method that's twice as fast. Dailies can be a nuisance, as they take a long time to do, and you feel like you're missing out if you skip them. On the other hand, they add some variety to your routine, and help stave off burnout, since they make you move between different activities throughout your day. The last point I want to make about RS3 is that bonus XP runs rampant. Even as an Iron Man, you can't escape the bonus XP. Every other weekend, there's some special event where you literally get a free skill cape. Leveling up in RS3 is a complete joke. That being said, your skill levels aren't the only line of progression. Getting top tier gear is a massive commitment in itself, and can take much longer than achieving 99s. The ecstasy I felt when I made my first noxious weapon as an Iron Man, it was simply indescribable. All my trials and tribulations had finally paid off. If being maxed in RS3 means nothing, at least you can wear your hard-earned weapons and armor with pride. In old school Scape, leveling up takes a very long time. What I like about this game is that XP rates stay constant over the years, regardless of how many updates we get. It's very comforting to know that the time you spent training a skill today won't be devalued sometime in the future. That being said, gimmicks like Nightmare Zone do detract a lot from the prestige of having a 99. In addition to training skills though, you have quests to do, diaries to fill out, and no shortage of boss monsters to kill and drops to collect. The sheer amount of dedication it takes to build up your character in OSRS is what makes this game truly special, I think. There's no shortcuts, no microtransactions, no catch-up mechanics. None of this casual, friendly bullshit that you see in every other game, including RS3. Old school Runescape is without a doubt the most hardcore MMORPG on the market. What I like about RuneScape 3 is that the game affords you a great deal of choice when it comes to equipping your character. You've got options for every gear slot, even at max level. For instance, if you prefer melee combat, there are plenty of viable armor sets to choose from. Torva, Tetsu, Terralith, Malevolent, Anima Core, even hybrid gear that supports a ranged or magic switch. In old school, you're stuck with just bandos. RS3 also has much more flavor in the weapons department. You can dual wield 2H or go defensive with the shield. Invention perks also give you loads of different effects with which to augment your own playstyle and stand out from the crowd. Against most boss monsters, all three combat styles are usable, which makes PvE a lot more interesting. In old school RuneScape, there's a meta for every PvE scenario. You haven't got much agency in what combat style to use or what equipment you'll be wearing. For instance, at the Bandos boss, you have to use melee. At Armadil, you have to use ranged. If you're maging, the only viable weapon is the trident. Even with ranged and melee, The weapon you use is dictated by the monster's defensive weakness. Armor choices as well are very limited and dictated by the situation as opposed to personal preference. The game gets really dull when you see everyone running around wearing the exact same gear. There's just no personality in it. RS3 shines in the aesthetics department. Beautiful graphics, mesmerizing soundtracks. It's a very well presented game. Even if you're a hater, you can't help being impressed. But digging beneath the surface yields a less favorable look. RS3 suffers from content bloat, where we have a whole plethora of monsters to kill, places to explore, mini-games to play, but only a few of them are actually worth your time from an efficiency standpoint, hence dead content. You could run from one side of the world map to the other and not see another player. The quests are engaging and well crafted, but some of the newer ones are really cheesy and will literally make you cringe your pants off. RS3 simply doesn't feel like a cohesive product. As a new player, the first thing you'll notice is the inconsistency between how flashy new content is and how clunky old content is. The Dagonoth Kings, for instance, were only graphically updated a few months ago. The Black Knight Titan speaks for itself. Dungeoneering bosses literally die in 2 hits, which is really anticlimactic. You need 90 smithing to make the tier 85 Tetsu body, but 99 smithing to make the tier 50 rune plate body, a major logical fart. The game lacks a solid foundation. There's so much that needs fixing, both mechanically and conceptually. Cosmetic overrides are also a major peeve of mine. I don't want to see people running around wearing sunglasses and bunny ears and shit. It just ruins the immersion and makes the whole game feel completely retarded. 2 out of 3 updates these days is a Squeal of Fortune promotion, and you get the feeling that at this point they're just milking the game for as much as they can before it falls over. Old school Runescape is a very quaint, primitive game, but at least it doesn't pretend to be something else. It's Runescape as it was meant to be, and at the end of the day, most of us don't mind that it doesn't look as impressive as other games. The game exudes a very medieval fairy tale feel that I find irresistible. It's the embodiment of beauty and simplicity. I personally prefer the old school world with its simple, small-scale lore, as opposed to RS3 with its God Wars and Galaxy Wars and Super Gods and whatever it is these days. The OSRS dev team seems to do a much better job of creating engaging content that is at the same time carefully balanced, and I definitely see a brighter future for this game. Alright, so here's how it all stacks up. I gave combat and character customization to RS3, and progression and game world to old school. I've thoroughly enjoyed playing both games myself, but if you're still wondering which one to go for, I'll break it down for you. RS3 if you want fast-paced, tactical combat with epic boss fights and flashy visuals. A game where you'll spend less time grinding and more time in the thick of the action. Old school if you're looking for a game that stresses patience and long-term commitment. A game that's a bit lackluster on the surface, but is bottomless fun once you really dive into it. And that's a wrap. Do you guys agree with my analysis? Anything I left out? Feel free to leave your nasty, dirty little comments below, and peace, guys. Keep scaping, and I'll see you next time.